Hi, this is Jackie Watson, the Cultural Director of the Turid Jespersen Lodge of the Daughters of Norway in Orange County, California. I'm recording this in April of 2025, but actually the lesson kind of started earlier this year. In January, I planned two cultural presentations. The first was about politics in Norway, and you can find that lesson, the recording of it, on our YouTube site. The second was kind of a follow-up to that, which is today's video, an interview opportunity that I had to speak with the leader of Norway's Progress Party, Sylvi Listhaug. She was so generous with her time, and I think we all learned a lot from this presentation. So that's my job today, is to share that interview with you. Since the last election in September of 2023, the Progress Party in Norway has been gaining a lot of popularity in Norway. And since the last national election in 2021, it's grown even more. But even just in the last 2 years, it's grown from about 12.5% to almost 20%. According to the polls that are taken today in Norway, it really looks like the Progress Party is likely to become the leader of a coalition government when elections are held in September of later on this year. So, given that, it looks like our subject today is Sylvi Listhaug. She is possibly the in line to become the next Prime Minister of Norway, and therefore what she has to say is particularly important. So, enjoy this interview. I'm taking over this position as the cultural director, and I feel like, I always say that if you're really, in polite company, you shouldn't talk about religion or politics, but I'm going to jump right in with politics because I feel like you
Yeah.
don't know a country, you don't know people unless you know what's important to them, which always shows up in their politics, right?
Yeah,
All right. So if
that's
you
true.
don't mind, I really don't like, I'm going to teach a separate lesson about politics in Norway in general, but I really want to just ask you more about you and how you are like came to this position where I'm like watching you on the internet debate the prime minister. That was really cool, by the way.
Thank you.
And maybe if you don't mind, could I back up and ask, like, I read that you originally you went to university to be a teacher, and how
Yes.
did you turn from going to teaching to deciding to work in politics instead?
I have always been very interested in politics, and I used to watch TV and debates from I was small.
Yeah.
I also remember Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher and their meetings in Iceland. All this I just thought was very interesting when I was growing up. So this was I was around 10 years old when this happened in the 80s.
Remember that.
So when I got a little bit older and watched these debates, I thought that the Progress Party or Fremskrittspartiet, I know that some English-speaking people think that a Progress Party must be on the left, but it's on the right.
Yeah.
And so I thought that I'm often agreeing with the Progress Party. And so when I was about 16, I thought that I should join the youth party. And at this time, one of the leaders in the party or the main figures nationally, but also in my constituency, he was my brother's teacher. So I said to my mother when she was going to a meeting that ask him how I can join the party. So she did and came home and gave me a phone number and I called in
Uh-huh.
and I was then a member of the party. And so there was some years going by. I didn't hear anything except that I paid my my fee. And then I thought, I can't sit here and wait for someone to contact me. I have to contact them and I have to go to meetings. So I went to Oslo and joined a meeting. And from that point, I was into it, so to speak. So I think I was 21 when I started to be active.
Okay.
And from this point, I was just joining everything I could. I was very engaged in in politics, and so I moved to Oslo in 2001. I remember the attack in New York, night of 11th of
Yeah, 9/11. Yeah.
September.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was going to move to Oslo 2 days later. So I did. And then I got a job in the parliament. So I started there as a political advisor. And from that on, I had different positions. I was also in the U.S. The House of Representatives as an intern. This was back in 2005 because we had a former ambassador to Norway from the U.S. that was really he was engaged in trying to bond Norway and the United States. So he gave two politicians, I think, every year a scholarship to go over and learn about American politics.
Huh.
So that was very interesting. And I also followed a class in Georgetown University to learn more about how American politics was functioning.
Or
So
not.
that was yeah. At this in this period, it was perhaps functioning better than it has done afterwards. But this time, George W. Bush, he was the president, and the candidate that I was working with, he was a Republican, a moderate Republican. So it was so interesting to see how the dynamics inside the party was yeah.
Yeah.
And it's very different from the Norwegian politics. You have two parties. We have 9 parties now in parliament, and a very different structure on how the system is functioning. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you have to cooperate and collaborate a lot more, I feel like, in Norway.
Yes, because there are so many parties, and that is also a big challenge, of course. But in Norway, I would say that in your two parties, there are probably many of the Norwegian parties in one party. So
Okay.
so yeah, so it's a different system. And afterwards, I was in the city of Oslo. I was a minister there for health and social security, so to speak. And then I was out of politics for 2 years, and then I was asked to come into government as a minister of agriculture. So I was 5 years a minister in Norway, and that was in different positions before I was now in parliament. So I haven't been in parliament that long. I came into parliament in 2017, but some of the years there I was in government, and now I'm leader of the party. So it's been a long journey
Yeah.
with
But
a
you've
lot of
also
politics and a lot
your
happening.
minister positions have been very like very broad. Like it's one
Yeah.
might say like the perfectly balanced background for someone that might be the next prime minister, right? Like you've done everything important, right? Like from the agriculture and food and justice and immigration and the the energy and the elderly people and healthcare and for them. I mean, like that's a very like you have a even if it's not a lot of years, it's a very good background to understanding all the major things that are happening in the country. Yeah.
Yes, and you have to know that to be a party leader, it's a big advantage if you have knowledge on different areas. So absolutely, and of course, when you are a minister, you are much deeper into things than you are as a member of parliament. So that has been a big advantage.
Yeah, I would think so. It's kind of like the perfect resume, I will say. As I was reading, I thought, wow, that's impressive. I particularly noticed. Um, I saw in your that early on when you were like 18, something like that, that you had worked in a home for the elderly, and then it keeps popping up in your positions later about taking care of the elderly and making sure that they have a legal right to nursing care, as their elder, which I don't think of as being like very, at least for us, for not very right wing, but it's like it shows a lot of heart, and I just thought that was so. It was just so like human and kind, and just like the reason why I think people live in a place like Norway is to make sure that you're taken care of, when you are vulnerable, especially like when you're in your old age. Is there a connection? Is that like a personal view, the taking care of the elderly? I felt like that maybe that came from that time period.
Yes, and when I was growing up, I had my grandmother in the loft. So I had, and she was old and had a heart disease.
Oh,
She actually went to the United States to get a surgery. In Norway, they said she was too old. So if she had not gone to the US and got that surgery, she would probably have lost 10 years alive.
wow.
Yeah, and so this was something that I was very I wanted her to have a good situation when she was old, that if she needed help that she would get that. So I think that was something that led me into politics and the Progress Party, because there was one politician when I was growing up that was really strong on rights for the elderly people. He was mad if they didn't get what they were supposed to get. He was really strong in this message, and from the Progress Party. So he was one of the reasons why I went in there. At the same time, I also had an old uncle of my father. I was helping. I was shopping. I was cleaning. I really enjoyed this, and at the same time, I was at the home for elderly people, where I worked much because I loved it, and so I have also always had a big heart for elderly people, and I still do. So that is one of my main issues, that we have to do more for the elder people in Norway and make sure that they get a good help when they need it.
Do you
And
have? Oh, sorry.
we don't do enough on that area.
I can't imagine. Do you have, I mean, we don't do anything in our country, but like, do people fight you? Do you have opposition to that position?
Yeah, we want the Norwegian state to have the responsibility to pay for what the elderly need. In Norway, you have a system where the municipalities, they have they are the ones that are organizing this sector. And what we see is that there are big differences between municipalities, because some are rich, some are poor,
Right.
some are they use a lot of money on this sector, others don't. So we just want that wherever you live, you should get the same good services, and we should also use private sector more. The government should pay, but the private sector could help us give more services to the elderly, and that they can choose between public sector and the private sector, and get some competition, because competition is good.
Yeah, yeah. Well, gosh, I hope that you are really successful with that. What a great thing to be able to fight for. That's got to make you feel great at the end of the day, to fight for the people that have worked all their lives to have, be to support your country. That's great. How wonderful. Can
Yeah.
you help me with clarifying some of the principles in your party so that I can to make sure that I understand? I think that the kind of the one thing that came up more than anything else was reducing taxes and government intervention and bureaucracy, right?
Mm.
Um, the the legal right to the nursing care, right? Norway first. What is that?
Well, Norway has a position that we are very much concerned about what other countries mean, want, and I think that we too not enough see what Norway what gains Norway. So we are not a part of the EU. I'm glad, because I think that EU is a inefficient. It's a regulator that regulates so much that it is not innovating enough. And we see that in 2008, Europe and US had the same economic growth and stood on the same place. And now the American economy is 30% larger than the European economy. So we have just we don't have the pace and the development that we should have. And we think that is because Europe is so into regulations. The climate policy is built like specific regulations, taxes in Europe that our competition, they don't have that, not China, not US. So you lose in the competition because you have different regulations, you have different taxes. You don't have the same competition ground, so to speak. So this is a problem, we think, and that's why we want Norway to make more our own way. We depend on Europe. Two of three goods go to Europe, exports. But at the same time, we should get a trade agreement with the US. We have a trade agreement with India. The EU doesn't have that. So we should more develop the things that we can get as a country outside the EU. And also we spend a lot of money on on aid. And much of the money is not going to where it's supposed to go. There are reports from time to time that says that they can't document where the money goes or if it is doing any good. So we say use less money and try to use them better. So we want to use less money on immigration, on aid, on bureaucracy, on green investments, because the state are subsidizing a lot. And we want to use this money to elderly people, children, to police. We have a problem with youth and organized crime. And also that we put down taxes. So we want to do things different from what we are doing today.
Are you? It's difficult for me to understand it seems like a very fine line, because you're not in the EU, but you do have to follow some of the rules of the European Economic Area. Is that right? Am I saying that right?
Yeah. Yes. We have a agreement with the EU, which are called the EEA. Okay. So we are in the common market, and that has been good for Norway, because then we can sell our goods to EU without any at the same competition level as the European enterprises. Yeah. But also we are not a member in the EU, and that gives us more independence in some areas.
Okay, that makes sense to me. And then on the environment, your party is more about removing restrictions, and is that correct? So
yeah, the problem today is that much of the environment policy is to spend very much money and get very bad results. And also we cut the emissions in Norway, but the emissions are coming otherwise. Like our oil and gas industry, they are now electrifying the oil platforms. So you take electricity from the shore and out in the sea to run these platforms. And that gives higher energy prices for people and businesses in the mainland. And the gas that used to manage the oil and gas platforms, that gas is now sent to Europe and it's burned there. So the emissions are the same, but we use a lot more money. We use a lot more of the electricity that should go to businesses in the mainland and the people to do this. So it's not it doesn't give we don't get any sense of this policy.
Right. So you're like
And
using all
also,
this, you're causing higher prices for your own use, like for regular people, so that you can produce
yes,
gas for other parts of Europe.
yes, and the gas that we otherwise would use in Norway to
Yeah.
manage the oil and gas platforms are just going to Europe, and are the emissions is out there. So this is the problem with the climate policy, that it's mainly about how the Norwegian sheet looks, how much have we got the emissions down, instead of what is happening in the world. How are we reducing the emissions in the world? Because we don't have our own atmosphere. We have a common atmosphere. So we
Right.
should do things that are actually getting down
Okay.
the emissions.
Yeah. Okay. Can
So
I ask
that's
you?
a problem in the whole EU, because
Yeah.
in Europe now, a lot of the industry is shutting down because the high energy prices. So industry are moving to the US and to the China and the East. And so the emissions in Europe go down. But that does also the industry production, and that's not good.
Yeah.
But you can say that the emissions are going down. But in the world, perhaps the emissions go up, because if you move to China and you use coal energy instead of gas, that will rise the emissions.
Yeah.
So this is the things that we can't understand, why we are doing such stupid things in the climate policies.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. Thank you. I One question that one of our members asked was, why is Norway so expensive, even in relationship to Sweden? I've read that like people in like the eastern part of the country actually go grocery shopping in Sweden. Is that true?
Yeah, yeah, yes, it is. Well, Norway has agriculture policy that are really like communism, so to speak. It's a system that are really, the state is very heavily in to have fix the prices, how much the farmers can produce. Everything is regulated, and we use a lot of subsidies that we produce food, because that is important. But we should not have all the regulations we have today, and we should not use as much money on subsidies as we do today. Also, Norway has high wages. This is because of the oil and gas industry,
Okay.
because we have earned so much money on the oil and gas industry, and the people that are working there have always have high wages, and the rest of the society has more or less follow that. So that is one of the explanations why it is like that.
Okay. Okay.
But now the dollar is really strong and the krona is really weak. So now it's not so expensive for you to come here. It's a good time to come here.
Well, okay, then I'll book my ticket.
And
I'm
it's
ready.
not a good time for us to go to the US. It's very expensive now.
Oh. Um, I I wonder if this could be my American lens on things, but I think for me, I think that it takes a lot of grit to be a successful woman in politics, more than for a man. I think you have to be, twice as smart and work three times as hard and, to be successful. Is that my American lens, or are there particular challenges still to being successful as a woman in politics in Norway?
Well, I think that in Norway we have had more women in politics for a longer time that has been in high positions, so to speak. Our first prime minister was in the 80s, Gro Harlem Brundtland.
Yeah.
But we have actually only had two women that has been the prime minister. But in politics, there are a lot of women. You have some parties, they have arrangement where they have to have so and so many women on their lists. My party doesn't have that because we say the ones that are the best, they should be on the list. If they are women, if they are men, we don't care.
Yeah.
But this is our, yeah. So, and I think that's a better way to do it, because if not, you will always have the question, is she there because she's good? Or is she there because someone has put her on the list because you have so and so many women, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, but if, of course, in Norway, what is good that if you get children, you have you can stay at home for at least 6-7 months, which and altogether almost a year. We want the families to decide themselves. If the mother could stay 1 year, she could do that. If they should choose themselves. Now the politicians are into this and they want to regulate, and the father should be home so much. We don't like this interference in the families.
Yeah.
And also you have kindergartens. That's very cheap. It's everyone has the right to have a kindergarten or your children in a kindergarten from their 1 year old. So it's good. It's easier, I think, to have children and everything, and also to have a career in Norway than perhaps in the US, where it's really expensive to have kindergartens. It's not, you work more. Even if you are in my position, you also work a lot. But I think there are some structures in the society that makes it perhaps a little bit easier for us here to combine.
Okay. Well, as a probable first or next prime minister, what would I can't understand the full debate that I'm watching it in Norwegian as if it makes any sense to me really, but I just like to watch it. So, but I imagine that somewhere in there you have kind of a description of what you see. What would your vision be for Norway's future? Like, what is it that you want when you go out and campaign and talk to people? What is the vision that you're articulating?
Yeah, I think that the most important thing is that we get a new government now, because the ones that are now sitting, they have done a lot of bad things for the private businesses, and that's dangerous for Norway, because we need to have the strong enterprises, Norwegians that are owning businesses. Some of our front people now have moved to Switzerland. That is not good for Norway. So I think that the most important thing is to have a policy that let people and businesses keep more of their money, and that the state has to back a little bit down, and let the people decide more. We have to take back our security in the youth crime. We have the Swedes, they have big problems with crime. They have it's bad over there, and we also see that the Swedes are coming to Norway and have organized crime here. So we have to fight that, because it's a big problem. So to have a stronger police, give them resources, give them more tools in this fight is really important, and that we use too much money in Norway on things that are a waste of money. Because we are rich, we waste too much money, and we need to stop that and use the money on the right things that are our children, our elderly, our sick, to take the security back. Those main issues have to be higher prioritized, and we need to waste less money on things that are not so important. That's the most important thing.
And if you waste less money, does that go back in the people's pockets then?
Yes, we want that. and also back to the most important things like our hospitals, our homes for elderly people, our schools. We have to do it better in those areas
Yeah.
and stop spending so much money on different things like immigration. We use 10 times as much as Denmark. On aid, we use more than any other country when it comes to how many people we are. On bureaucracy, 62% of our BNP is used in the public sector. It's not sustainable.
Yeah.
So we have to do changes to make Norway start to develop more enterprises and let the people that run the businesses do the investments instead of the state that sit now and use so much money on green industry that politicians and bureaucrats, they would never spend their own money in this way. And we should not spend the people's money either.
Fair enough. What would your political colleagues be surprised to learn about you?
I think they know me pretty well.
Do they?
Yes, we are good friends in Norway, all the parties, and that's a good thing about the Norwegian politics.
Yeah.
That we can fight in politics and we can discuss, but in the end of the day, we are good friends, and we can also cooperate when it's necessary, as we did with the defense agreement. All the parties from the right all the way on the left and to the right, we all stood together and was doing a deal with the defense. I think that's a good thing
I wish
that
you
you
could
do
write
that
an
in.
instruction manual for us on that, how to get along, cooperate.
Yeah, yeah, I think they would have used. They should learn that in the US. Yeah,
For
I
real.
agree.
Okay, well, how do you unwind and relax when you're not working? It looks like you work all the time, but what do you do to
No,
relax?
I'm with my family. It's so nice just to be home and relax and go to the US is my favorite things to do. In the Easter time, I plan to come to Orange County. Oh, I can't wait. I love the United States. So that's one of the best thing I do with my family.
Nice. I hope it's nice and warm when you come.
I hope so too. It's in April, so it should be
It
nice.
should be. It should be. How about, do you have a favorite book or an author that you can recommend? Maybe a Norwegian author you can recommend for my next book?
Oh, I read a lot, but I can't. Yeah, that's the country that got to reach, but I don't know if it's in English. It's a really interesting book right now in Norway.
Huh.
It's an economist that has written a book about the Norwegian problem with the spending. We spend too much money. Uh, we don't have the growth in the economy that we should have.
Yeah.
So this is the big debate in Norway right now, and I wish it would be translated into English so you can read it because it's a good book. His name is Martin Beckholte.
Well, even if it's not in English, then that someone for sure, other members of our lodge will definitely be like trying to find that
Yeah,
book for sure.
yeah.
All right, last one for you. What's your favorite guilty pleasure snack?
Oh, I like Snickers. That's good. The chocolate bar. And also Pepsi. That's my favorite drink. If I'm enjoying myself in the weekend, that's Pepsi. The, the 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 real thing, Pepsi with
Everybody's
sugar.
got to have those, like, pick me ups, right? It's very relatable.
Yeah.
Sylvie, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. This is going to be so lovely for our members to feel like they're getting to know you a little bit. And, a lot of our members have family back in Norway. I'm sure it's going to cause a lot of conversations. So we're all of us very grateful for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and all the best to the Sisters of Norway. I think it's so good that we have a lot of ambassadors in the US that are speaking well for Norway, and that you are also engaged in the country. It's so good, and you are always welcome to come back here. and visit us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Good luck on your campaigning.
Thank you so much.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.
So that was my interview with Sylvi Listhaug, and I just wanted to make a few thank yous to Sylvi and her assistant Ingar, who was very kind in helping me arrange all the details for our video conversation. Aud and Lila from my lodge, who also made this happen, and without them, it just I wouldn't have had this opportunity, which I think is super, super neat. Also, if you do happen to read in Norwegian, the book that Sylvie was recommending was called The Country That Got Too Rich. And that's the author's name, Martin Beckholt. And I think that's it for us. So thank you very much for watching, and keep an eye out for our next cultural presentation episode on our YouTube channel. Thanks a lot.